10 years ago, you killed someone and then watched the case die slowly in the hands of a system that couldn't prove a thing. No witness held, no lead survived, no one could touch you. You thought it was over, but the case didn't die. It just waited for better tools. 10 years have passed since the night you killed them, and time has done what the police never could. It made the whole thing feel unreal. Back then, you were careful in all the ways that mattered. No direct witnesses, no panicked calls from your own phone, because your phone was somewhere else entirely, lighting up a different map, telling a different story. You wiped down the surfaces that could remember your hands. You built an alibi that wasn't perfect, but it didn't need to be. It only needed to be better than what they could prove. And for a while, they did look at you. Detectives circled back. Questions came in different tones. Casual at first, then sharper, then tired. But suspicion is not a conviction, and instinct is not evidence. Eventually, the file lost its heat. The case number stayed alive, but only on paper. Another cold case boxed up in a room full of unfinished endings. So you moved. New city, new routines, new face for the world. You learned how to smile without forcing it. You built a life that looked ordinary from every angle. A steady job, neighbors who waved, maybe someone who loved you, maybe even a family that never thought to ask what lived beneath your calm. You stopped thinking like a fugitive because fugitives look over their shoulder. You don't, not anymore. You live like a man who won, because what you missed wasn't obvious then, and the evidence didn't disappear. It just stopped mattering for a while. It starts small enough to dismiss. A local article, half buried between political noise and weather updates, mentions that the cold case unit has reopened several unsolved homicides. You almost scroll past it. Almost. But one phrase catches in your chest, hard enough to stop your thumb. For a second, your body reacts before your mind does. That old electric jolt, sharp and instinctive. Then you tell yourself what you've told yourself for years. It doesn't mean your case. It doesn't mean you. But the signs keep coming. A late-night local segment revisits the murder with that familiar mix of sympathy and distance, like the dead belong more to archives than memory. Then there's talk of a new prosecutor reviewing dormant files. A contract signed with a forensic lab using updated recovery methods. Modern imaging, digital reconstruction, evidence that used to sit in storage now fed back into machines designed to find meaning in what older systems missed. Somewhere in an evidence room, an object from that night is handled again, not dramatically, not with sirens or warrants, just a technician, fresh gloves, brighter tools, and a process far more patient than the one that failed 10 years ago. What once looked like nothing now yields fragments. Touch, DNA recovered from degraded surfaces, partial profiles teased out of damaged material, microscopic transfer patterns too faint for the past to notice. A latent print, once useless, sharpened through newer imaging until it starts to resemble something human. They still don't know it's you. Not yet. There's no name on the screen, no knock at the door, but for the first time in 10 years, the evidence is moving again. And somewhere inside that movement, the system is beginning to build a shadow. The first result doesn't give them your name, not directly. It gives them something worse, a partial match. In another era, that would have been where it ended. An incomplete signal, too weak to stand on, too vague to matter. But this is no longer an era that lets fragments stay fragmented. The investigators widen the search, genealogy databases, family tree inference, geographic narrowing, estimated age range, sex, behavioral profiling. The picture still isn't complete, but for the first time, suspicion has structure. It has edges, it has a silhouette, and once a silhouette exists, someone starts trying to fill it in. A younger detective, someone with fresher eyes, and none of the old department's fatigue, goes back through the original file and notices what everyone else let blur into background noise. Your movement history doesn't quite line up. There's a gap in your statement, just a small stretch of time that never sat right. Then there's one detail you got wrong all those years ago, something minor enough to survive the first investigation, but not minor enough to survive a second look. The kind of mistake that means nothing alone and everything, once someone starts arranging the pieces in the right order. Even the old surveillance footage, grainy and useless for years, begins to change under new tools. AI enhancement can't give them a perfect face, but it doesn't need to. It gives them height, gait, the cut of your clothing, the direction you moved when you thought darkness was enough to erase you. None of it proves the case on its own. No single piece could convict you. But together, they were beginning to sound like your name. They still haven't arrested you. That's what makes it worse. An arrest would at least be honest. Clean. A line crossed. But this is quieter than that, more patient. You start noticing things so small that sound ridiculous if you said them out loud. A car parked too long across from the house, an old account showing an unfamiliar login. Someone casually bringing up a story from 10 years ago like it means nothing. A coworker mentioning that a detective stopped by asking harmless questions in a harmless tone. No accusation, no pressure, just the slow, precise feeling that your life is being touched from the outside. And that is when you make the mistake that matters. You react. You go looking for old traces, deleting what should have stayed buried and forgotten. You search the victim's name, then the case, then the reopened investigation, each click made with the desperate logic of someone trying to get ahead of something already moving faster than they are. You revisit records. You reach out, carefully at first, then less carefully, to people connected to that time in your life. You tell yourself you're just checking the edges, just measuring the risk. But every defensive move creates something new in the present. Fresh digital footprints, renewed contact, behavior that doesn't read like innocence. It reads like fear. And investigators know the difference, because the murder happened 10 years ago, but the mistake that would expose you happens now. You are no longer just a man being followed by his past. You are a man actively helping build the case against himself. By now, normal life is no longer something you live. It's something you perform. You stop tasting your food. You lie awake beside the person who trusts you, staring into the dark, listening to the house settle like it's trying to tell on you. Every knock at the door sends a hard shock through your chest. Every unknown number feels deliberate. Every glance from a neighbor lingers too long. And the cruelest part is that everything you once treated as proof you had escaped, a home, a career, a marriage, children, a reputation carefully built over years, has turned into a list of things you are about to lose. You think about running? Of course you do. You picture cash, highways, a different name, some smaller life in a place no one asks questions. But running now would be its own confession. Staying means waiting to be taken. Either way, the life you built has already started collapsing inward, so you replay the old plan in your mind step by step, trying to find reassurance in its precision. But for the first time, you see the truth clearly. It was only perfect in the world that existed 10 years ago. Back then, caution was enough. Back then, if evidence went quiet, it stayed quiet. Now technology has turned your carefulness into something outdated, almost naive. The methods that protected you have aged into vulnerabilities, and that is what finally breaks something inside you. Not the idea that the police are chasing you, but the realization that they may not need to anymore. You didn't feel hunted when they were chasing you. You felt hunted when they stopped needing to, because now you're in the system. Not proven yet, not publicly destroyed yet, but indexed, narrowed, tracked, waiting for the final click into place. So this becomes survival in its rawest form, not in the woods, not in the cold, but inside your own daily life, holding your routine together, keeping your face neutral, going to work, making small talk, standing in your kitchen like nothing is wrong while your entire world waits one breath away from ending. It doesn't end with sirens tearing through the night or a desperate run through back alleys. There's no shattered glass, no gun drawn in a doorway, no final burst of chaos dramatic enough to match the fear that's been building inside you. It ends the way most lives actually break, quietly, in public, on a day that begins like every other one before it. Maybe you're standing in line for coffee, half listening to the hiss of steamed milk and the low hum of morning conversation. Maybe you're outside a school, waiting for your child to climb into the car. Maybe you're stepping out of the office, briefcase in hand, already thinking about dinner. Maybe you're in your front yard, pushing a lawnmower across clean green lines you were stupid enough to believe belonged to a normal life. Then you hear your name. Your real name, not shouted, not panicked, just spoken with the kind of certainty that leaves no room for escape. You turn, and there they are. Detectives, uniforms, calm faces, controlled voices. One of them steps forward and starts reading your rights, while the rest of the world keeps moving around you for one impossible second. Then it changes. People stop. They stare. Co-workers, neighbors, strangers. And in their eyes, you watch yourself become someone else entirely. A man they thought they knew collapsing into the truth they never saw. 10 years of rebuilding your life comes apart in seconds. Not because you suddenly became a murderer again, but because the truth finally caught up with time. You didn't get away with murder. You only got 10 borrowed years, because time does not erase guilt, it only waits for better evidence.